As I promised, we start right on time at 8:05. Welcome everybody here to the webinar of document management. And this is actually the first time that we do a webinar that also customers are attending, and I hope we can do one of those like once a month, introducing people to features and functionality within CSB. Just some housekeeping rules. I have put you all on mute, so because you may have barking dogs, crying children, or running jackhammers in front of your house, so that the voice recording is nice. But in case you have any questions during this session, feel free to send a chat. I have the chat window open. I will try to answer questions as they arise. This webinar will be about 1 hour in duration, and I will start off with a little PowerPoint, and then we will go live into CSB and see how some of that functionality looks within the CSB application. But it's not the case like Steve Jobs said. When people show PowerPoint, they don't know and don't understand the product. I like to use PowerPoint in this instance to explain some basic concepts and set a little bit the frame about what we are talking here today. So with that being said, let's start. Let's start talking about the document management system. I mean, the general idea of document management in CSB is very simple. I mean, we know that a lot of organizations spend a lot of time searching for documents, that are somewhere in their organization, that need to retrieve them from an archive, later on return them wherever they pulled them from. Share them, run to the copier, email them out, or whatever you need to do with them, and eventually also the space that they occupy. I mean, we see that at customers that they rent external storage space for their documents. In the US, we have requirements to keep original source documents for 7 years. In Germany, the legal requirement is 10 years. So depending on what legislation you are in, you are required to store it. I think Canada is also like 7 years. And IDC has done research and said like, a typical enterprise with about 1,000 knowledge workers wastes about $2.5 to $3.5 million per year for searching these documents, and recreating these documents, copying them. I mean, anything that is related to dealing with these documents. Or let's say you smaller guy like yours has 10 office workers. You still talk about a range of $25,000 to $35,000 per year. 100 knowledge workers, basic office workers, would translate into $250,000 to $350,000 a year. So it is significant amount of time wasted, not accounting for reduced customer service. When a customer calls and wants to get a duplicate invoice, how long it takes for you to retrieve that document and send it out to them versus having that instantly available for them. So there is a huge cost savings potential, and probably 10 years back we started working on document management and automating these processes. And here are some like direct effects that we learn from our customers, that you, for example, can really fourfold or reduce the time 75% to retrieve such a document, in 18 times in terms of search. You just spend 1/3 of the cost compared to traditional filing of documents. I mean, printing costs, paper costs, storage costs, and so on and so forth. So the benefits are vast. They are very fast to realize, and they are very flexible to achieve. Before we go there, we got to set a little bit the framework. And when we talk about document management system in CSB, we talk 3 different pillars, and we will cover today one of those pillars, which is called CSB archiving. But there are, and for completeness I need to mention them, there are like 2 more. One is called CSB ECM, which stands for Electronic Content Management, and another one is for CSV document steering. And what is the difference between those? I mean, historically, customers ask us to archive original source documents. So talking about bill of ladings, talking about incoming invoices from vendors, talking outgoing invoices to customers, and that was what eventually became CSV archiving. So then they got back to us and say, well, I mean, now I have like other documents. I have like product specification sheets. I have Word documents, procedures, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they are not as static as my archiving documents, my original source documents, that never change, that I need to have manipulation proof stored. But they still underlie a certain security issue. So when we talk about these procedures and these product specifications, we want to have access control, we want to have revision control, we want to have certain things, but not like as complex as archiving. So we developed ECM. So, and then customers, as they are, they say, well, yeah, that's cool, but that's still not exactly what we, all what we need, because now when we talk about product specification sheets, let's say, there is a certain process that is related to creating these documents, and there is, that is also under control, where different people need to fill in certain sections, and then eventually when you have all that information collected, then you need to, execute certain things, perhaps you have a process that is called create a new item, and that process at the end needs to generate that item in the item master, or needs to generate pricing, or you name it. So we need something a little bit more complex, and this ECM was too simple for us. And with the August release of 4.2 in 2011 and the September release of 5.2 2011 came what CSV calls document steering, where you now can, in a workflow style, design processes that deal with these documents and then eventually trigger, activities inside CSV. Now, like I said, I mean, this is for a future session. I will probably in a month or so schedule another webinar about this ECM and document steering section, but we'll today focus on CSV archiving. So just basically dealing with the original source document as a start. So this is it in a nutshell. So when we talk about archiving archiving is for documents that shall not be changed and need to be stored manipulation proof. So we talk about original source documents in the sense of accounting. You want to have, a way to store them in a secure fashion. And nobody is ever going to change these documents. When we talk about ECM, we talk about external documents that shall be changed, or that that naturally change, but are under revision control and actually access control. That is also a substitute. For example, when we talk about linking external documents, I don't know if you do any of that. You have the ability in purchasing and in bill of materials and in item master, address master, to attach external documents to CSV. Problem with that is you can, when you do it via the file system, they are under file system user access control. So if you don't have, if somebody, for example, takes a document and links it to his My Documents folder and you don't have access to it, even though it's attached to the item, you don't have access to it. ECM takes care of that, so that it stores the documents inside the database, and you regulate the access within CSV. So regardless of where the user stores the original document, the actual copy is actually stored inside the database and is accessible wherever it needs to be accessed. And then the third one is actually document steering. Like I said, that is then related to ECM. It builds on top of ECM and controls the flow of documents within your organization. Like I said, these two topics, in about a month, I will send new invitations out and publish them on that LinkedIn group, and we'll take care of that. So, we talk about archiving. We talk about archiving in within any standard application in CSV. So you can generally use what I'm showing you from any standard application that CSV has. All it is required is essentially that it is able to print. So you can archive any document. You can orders, invoices, dunning notices, inspection records, for example, for your QA, maintenance records. There is no limitation in terms of what type of document. In ECM, you can actually import external documents using drag and drop. You can archive individually on batch scans, and I will talk a little bit more about how that is going to be accomplished. You can even archive incoming and outgoing emails. That is actually if you use CSV as an email client, of course. It is hardly in use. I would say that is perhaps something that most of you do on the outside using your Exchange servers or whatever email service you have. Archiving of all kinds of file formats. When we talk about archiving, especially when we talk about ECM, you can store technically videos, music files, any kind of file that you want inside the archiving system, and of course digital personnel files. So when we talk about archiving, we need to talk about a little, from the hardware setup side before we actually go into the functionality. And in general terms, you have, here your regular ERP users on the bottom. So these are the three users here, standard ERP users. And you have your CSV system, of course, that is somewhere here that is not on this chart. But then you have, inside CSV, basically two additional workers or users that utilize CSV, but they don't do anything. I mean, similar like, you have EDI jobs running or something. You have two users that, in addition, require access to CSV. One is what we call a code export. And code export is essentially that it takes whatever needs to be archived inside CSV and reformats that so that it gets ready to be put on a disk and be put into the archive itself. That is basically like a preprocessor. And it turns the CSV documents in the so-called cold format. And cold stands for computer output on Laserdisc. That code format is actually standardized. I mean, there are Wikipedia articles that you can read up on. And so this pre-process just generates a standard archive, a standard archiving file set an archive server can understand. And then the CSV system archive server is the second one that runs, and the archive server actually takes these files and puts them parallel into a database and on optical drives. I mean, these optical drives are here illustrated as jukebox. It can be a jukebox. It is, jukeboxes are perhaps from times where we didn't have DVDs or Blu-rays. Nowadays, you would use like a PC that has, let's say, two drives attached. I mean, either like DVD drives or Blu-ray drives. The reason why you have to is just that you want to have a rollover, so when one disk is full, that it can roll over to the next one, and so that you have a few days or so to replace that disk that is full and closed, so that you have some rollover. You can have up to 4 or 5 in CSV, but that depends on the document volume. I mean, in my experience, even like high document volumes, you have month worth of data on like a DVD from what I've seen so far. But that depends on the individual installation. That depends on the amount of data you want to store inside the archive. And we'll see all that later, how that looks live in CSV. So the general flow is in that environment is that you create a document, that is either in CSV or outside of CSV, and pretty much any document. Then you do the necessary preparation and conversion of that in the background for the archive. Then you store that document, so you move the document to the database storage, which is mandatory, and the optical disk, which is optional. So the optical disk is really like for audit proving the archive, and that depends also on your individual legislation, whether that is required. We have some countries that are good enough with database storage, but some countries require the local tax, here the IRS in the United States or Canada Revenue. Some of those require actually that you store original documents audit proof on an optical disk at the time of creation. And eventually we talk about retrieving these documents. So, and there are different ways that you can retrieve these documents. I will show you 3 examples. Within an application, we will do an archive retrieval. We will do via the Archive Manager, which is the research tool within CSB. And we will also talk about web access to archive data. So with that said, this is a little bit more complex, but I mean, conceptually, an important piece to understand when we talk about archiving, because I put here together these 5 different ways on how you basically can get documents into the archiving. And when we talk about that, we got to keep in mind, and I had recently like a conversation with one client that looked at like an external archiving system from like a third party, having that in use with CSB. And this also illustrates the downsides of that, because I mean, if you use like let's say an Iron Mountain or any of those archive solution providers, that is not integrated, the problem is actually the link. Yeah, the link between the data and the actual image. When you do archiving, what basically happens is that you create an image. You create a TIFF image or a PDF document. You create like a file that displays a document, but in a fashion that you don't really have the data. And to get to retrieve that document, you need like data records. Right, you need like a data record that says which customer it is, which order number it is, which invoice number, sales rep, route. I mean, you name it. You need like some sort of research capability to do that. And all what external systems could do is recognition via OCR, which is original character recognition, right? So with that, we need to let me close my. So that is the only way. So that they use some sort of character recognition of the document when it's, for example, being scanned into the system. And try to find, and this is like very error prone. CSB has also that technology, but it is naturally very error prone. Sometimes, for example, an O is easily mistaken for a 0, a 1 is easily mistaken for a 7, and so on and so forth. There are naturally issues with that. So now what CSB does is it creates a data record and the file, the image, at the same time, and links them together. And in the most simplest form, what happens is that you print something out like a sales invoice. And in case you do a sales invoice, and during that print, you attach the data and create that data record inside that database right then and there, and create that image right then and there, and link that right then and there. So when you print an invoice, there's basically nothing that you need to do, because that invoice goes straight into the code export and from there into the archive. So that is the most simplest way. What is also like still fairly simple is a process when you what I call like in-place scanning. That is, for example, that you then create within that transaction, when you, for example, talk about a procurement invoice from a vendor, that you have a button in invoice matching, let's say, or in accounting purchase order entry in the invoice entry screen, and then you can just open a scanner. It creates a data record. You scan in that document, and then during the scanning action, it creates a data record, and the document stores them both. And again, you have both sets of data in the archive at the same time, and it's properly indexed. Now, this is like fairly straightforward. Now, in some instances, now you have CSB documents that are underlying external changes, and that is here what I called asynchronous scanning. What is normally used for, let's say, a bill of lading or for proof of delivery. In which instance, what we do is, and we will see that live in the system shortly, we create a data record. We create like the data record while we are printing that bill of lading, and put a barcode on that bill of lading. And then we use the scanner to recognize that barcode. So that barcode is just like a sequential number and tells, well, this barcode is related to order number such and such from order date such and such, and so on and so forth. And then you scan it actually into the you put it on the scanner. The system actually uses that barcode and knows now, aha, when I read that barcode number, it is attached, it is a bill of lading from that customer, from that sales rep, and so on and so forth, has all that information and marries the data together. And that is actually highly reliable. So when we scan these documents in, it is a batch function. It reads like tons of barcodes at one time. So you just feed in the documents, and you just have a little, a very low error rate when you get those bill of ladings back. And in case the system cannot recognize the barcode, you have then, of course, manually the ability to look inside the document and manually enter the barcode. So I hope everybody is still with me. Like I said, if you have questions, just ping me here in the chat window. Now, once we had that, we basically thought about, man, we could do the same thing for let's say incoming invoices. So instead of in-place scanning, we had instances, for example, where users wanted to say, well, why don't we do it similar like with a bill of lading? And what we then do is, we apply, we have a roll of barcodes that, for example, the receptionist has. And that is just sequentially numbered. And when they open the mail and see their incoming invoices, she puts a sticker on that incoming invoice and passes it along to invoice matching. And in invoice matching, what they do is they enter that barcode number with the transaction. So that when they do invoice matching, they enter the barcode number of that screen and put it aside, and then put it into the same stack where they scan in the bill of ladings and scan in all the documents. And then in that instance, again, use the barcode to associate that purchase transaction that particular invoice is related to. And the idea of that was just like when you have larger organizations, you have multiple places where you want to scan, or you need to scan individual documents. You don't want to really have every user having their individual flatbed scanner next to their desk and do it right in place. Then you rather go and buy like a better scanner, like a high volume document scanner that scans the documents just faster, and have that at a central location where somebody actually takes care of all the documents that occur within your organization. Yeah. And then the fourth one is essentially Microsoft Word documents. That is actually ECM, and they are like where we index that directly. So with that, ready for some demo, eh? Any questions so far? Nope. All right. Easy enough. So what I have here is a CSV system, and I just show it slowly to you. That is actually a version 5.2 of September. It works identical in like a 4.2 version, even as far as I'm showing here to you today. Even in older versions of 4.2, it is really like a fairly release independent. This is like older functionality that has been in the system for quite some time. And the scenario that I'm in here right now is that I have, like everybody of you, I have processed an order. And that is here that order that I just processed here this morning. This is, order was taken. I scanned these 5 and 10 cases to my order, and is now ready to print the bill of lading. So we start the process at the bill of lading print. Everything else, what happened before, and I go ahead and print that bill of lading. So that is order number 123. If you want to take that down, so it will print here in a minute. So and what I do is actually just call it up again, the same order, and print the invoice right away. which may have happened later, and then we can focus on the archiving functionality. Okay. So what has happened inside CSB up to this point? The invoice is actually ready. We created now an invoice that is now being ready to be converted to the archive. And like I said, we have to have that user that turns it into a code format, which is actually done in program 570. So this is actually a service that runs in the background, and that creates these external documents. So what now happened is, as you see here, it turned like two documents in CSB. It created like the complete record for the outgoing invoice, for an outgoing invoice, and it created that barcode record that we later on use for the barcode recognition of the bill of lading. Yeah, so that has a bill of lading export, and that is actually the invoice export that happened in CSB, which is not quite yet in the archive, which is at this point in time just prepared to be in the archive and needs to be transacted into the archive. And the physical transaction into the archive is done with an archive server. And this is like an application that runs outside of CSB that has here in the setup different settings. So it has here like an ODBC connection and says what the DSN name is for the database. So I have inside my database a separate database setup that runs on SQL Server. And I have here like other directories. I have here, for example, the 4 image directories. These are directories that would be pointed to your optical drives. So that is pretty much all that needs to be set up here at this point in time. There is other settings actually that should be actually set here to 5.2, but anyway. So other settings, you can actually enable jukebox, and there are other things. So once you have that, you hit the Start Archive button, and the Start Archive button takes these documents now and moves them to the actual archive. So this just runs in the background and does a rollover between the image directories here and checks what is available in terms of spaces, and eventually when the disk is full, closes the disk, and so on and so forth. So again, this is also a tool that can be in your startup folder. It starts just up on like that PC that has the necessary hardware to store that information. So I just stop that for a minute here now and go back. So the invoice is now in system. The only thing that is not in the system, and I just do that now, of course, part of the invoicing process, everybody knows that you need to post it, of course. That is just an accounting transaction. Everybody does that. I need to do that, of course, to post that invoice now to show you the lookup function of that particular invoice in accounting, later on integrated, so that I have a transaction that I can use. So I post that invoice I just created to accounting so that we can look up that invoice integrated in the archive. So that is completed. So we got the invoice in the archive, but the bill of lading. We printed the bill of lading. Now let's follow the bill of lading. The bill of lading is, in my instance now, being printed here here are all my documents, right? So I have here my pick ticket that I printed this morning before I started this session. Here is that bill of lading, and that bill of lading contains now a barcode, right? So we see here that barcode, and that barcode number has the number 14. And attached to that number 14 and that barcode is all that other information that we see, the order number, the print date, the customer number, and so on and so forth. So we have all that information attached and created with that barcode record. So with that, we have the bill of lading. I have like other, and here's the actual invoice as a spool file. So to simulate what happens to the bill of lading is it is going to be printed and it goes out to the customer. So I got to simulate that somehow. And I do that by exporting that here as a TIFF file and save that on my disk. So this is now going out, and here's that bill of lading now in Paint, just to just Microsoft Paint is that same document. See that order number 123, and what does a customer do? The customer signs that invoice somehow, right, and says here like whatever, got it. Yeah. So customer has now that bill of lading in front of him. He signed that document and saved that document. Okay. I mean, the physical process would be in somehow that you printed the document, they signed it, you get it back, and you scan it in, and you scan it now into a certain directory, which is that directory that I just used, and that is called BOL. So this is all that would happen, and that can be a stack of documents. So that can be like multiple documents. I just do it here in my demo with a single document. So what you would do inside CSB, you would use barcode recognition software. And then you would say scan, and then you would browse to that directory where all the documents, the scanned copies of your documents are now stored, which is that BOL document, and I hit OK. And now the system says business transaction found. So it recognized the barcode number 14 out of that image, right? So it took the barcode and recognized the number 14 and associated that with the business transaction. So in case it would find a file that wouldn't recognize, the system would actually say, business transaction not found. And in this instance, you could actually then say, look inside that document. You would hit a view. You would see here that 14, meaning here's that document. Here's what I signed. Here's that 14. You can actually look inside that document and could manually enter that barcode here, right? But that is in this instance not needed. So all I do now is hit archive. Boom. And it is archived. So this is actually just a process that I need to go through. And again, process that with my code export, so that now this delivery note is created again as a code format, being available for the archive, and the DMS. Did I shut it down? I apparently did. And the DMS now takes that invoice and writes that bill of lading into the archive. So this is now stored inside the archive. And I mean, don't need to show you the database admin. It's just a separate database inside the same SQL server. It could be technically running on the same machine that you run SQL Server for CSB, but that is not recommended. You normally take a different machine for that because you have different characteristics in terms of that machine. Much more storage, much less transaction power, so you don't need to have that much memory. You don't have to have that heavy processor, but you need to have lots of storage. You don't need to have that fast of storage. So it's like hardware-wise, like little different characteristics. If you have enough headroom and enough capacity on your existing CSV server, you can just roll it in and move that database later to a different machine, for startup reasons. But that is all there is. So we have now both documents hopefully inside CSB. Now, how can we access now these external documents? And I like to think of that in like 3 different ways. First, let's say integrated, right? So when you are in CSB and now you work with that particular customer that we just have, I guess, let me use address here, and let me use my customer that I have used here, Daily Brands of America, was it, right? So I have here my my invoice. I can hit the information bucket. I can hit documents, and can drill through that information. Let me see. So here's that invoice. Let me use the open item list. here's that invoice that we just created, right? So now I can hit list, see the individual detail, hit select, and go to show archived invoice, and that will show me the integrated archived invoice. So here I have that invoice now. This has been stored as PDF. That was a document that we just created here this morning in this session with the original invoice. So there is, for example, integrated way that you can configure inside CSB now a direct access of individual documents straight from accounting, for example, right? So that would be integrated. The other way of integrating, of researching would be the Archive Manager. And the Archive Manager is essentially like a reporting tool. And here I pull up the bill of ladings and say, give me all the delivery notes. And this is just a standard report tool. So I just, I didn't set up anything. Show me all delivery notes here in this instance that are in a certain date range. I hit the Start Search button. And now I see the documents here, and again I see now the bill of lading that we just did, that 123, that image, that scanned image, which I signed, and have accessibility in there. And in this instance I also have the ability to work with these documents. That is actually a question on, or it's a big decision to make, whether you archive as PDF, and PDF actually means you cannot do any changes to it. If you set that document group to store as TIFF, you can actually use you know, like a button, and can say here I would like to actually add a post-it, look at this or something, and you know, take that and post it on there, right? So then you can basically put that remark on there, and you know, save that. And when you actually save that, that can also be stored in addition to the document. So you have remarks, you have annotation capabilities in CSV, and these annotations also go inside that archive, right? So that is on the archiving side. And then the third way that is came recently would be like, let's say you give your customer access. So the archiving has an attached DT module, and the DT by the web services and by the ZOA stack of CSV provides the ability to program, let's say, some sort of customer interface where they do certain things. So this example here is from is in use at Edeka Rheinstetten. That is actually a solution that is live in use. It is a retailer. That retailer gives the individual stores for you know, order changes and different other things, gives them remote access so that they can do certain things and self-serve their application. So this takes here like a little minute. The reason is just like, you know, that my machine here is, you know, running like 5 instances of CSV right now. So here we go. And here's like, you know, different things. This is actually just a website that provides an access to, let's say, the archive. So the customer can go here and say, I would like to see my invoices. So here's that invoice that we just see. So they can click on the download button on their website, you know, see that invoice. Yeah, so that is again that invoice now via the website called up, or you know, where they then say they have here, like, let's say, the bill of lading in there, and here we go. That should be that bill of lading that I just created here, right? So that would be like remote access. So that would be then the third way that you can retrieve those documents. Customer can do that via the website. You can do that integrated in CSV, or you use the Archive Manager to retrieve documents at any time. So that is pretty much what archiving looks like and what it does and how it works. So, and I'm now open here for any questions. So if you have any questions, please send them in the chat window, or, you know, if you just put something in the chat window, I can open up your microphone. So, any questions? Hello? No questions at all. That was easy. In this instance, I will conclude this session for today, and we'll then we'll schedule like another session about the same time, like you know, in a month. Is that time working for everybody? I will then schedule like another session which will deal with the ECM portion of it and the document steering, you know, sometime early January after the new year. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, unless I talk to you before that. Thank you very much for today's session, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.